Last Friday evening, I sat glued to the television set until early the next morning, listening to bipartisan condemnations sparked by the video of Donald Trump's comments on his perverse and misogynist view of women. It was eerie, to tell you the truth, the kind of conversation I never expected to be associated with a presidential election. But of course, this presidential campaign has been like no other I have experienced. The debate last Sunday evening served only to disturb me more and make me question what's happening in our nation. Television debates were incorporated into presidential campaigns in order to give the public more time and access to evaluate candidates and their policies. That's not what happened this past weekend. We saw an angry man, unable to be honest about himself and his campaign, try to eviscerate a woman by attacking her husband and seeking to prove that she is a bigger and bolder non-truth teller than he and should be put in jail, a fate that Trump would impose on her if elected president of the United States. Everything dirty, nasty, manipulative, and worse that has ever been cynically associated with politics was in full display during that debate, as it is every day on the campaign trail. I worried about the conclusions related to politics that would lodge in the mind of my 14-year-old grandson who was watching the debate with his dad. My mind raced back to the Watergate hearings in 1973. U.S. Senator Joseph Montoya asked Gordon Strachan, the liaison between the Nixon campaign and the White House, what advice he would give to young people interested in working in the political and governmental arena. Stay away, Strachan said forcefully. My fear is that message is being more subtly conveyed in this year's presidential campaign, and we just may be discouraging a whole generation of young people to stay out of politics. Not only is Donald Trump giving politics a bad name, he is sowing the seeds of suspicion and encouraging negations of democracy itself. Repeatedly, Trump speaks of a rigged election that could cost him victory on Election Day. What in the world is he doing? I don't remember another presidential candidate that has tried so blatantly to undermine trust in the nature of our government. Now, pivot has been as much of an overused term in this campaign cycle as it has been a strategy among candidates from the time of the primaries to the present moment. Pivot. Having said that, I now want to pivot. And I hope you're sitting down while listening, because I want to say a few words in defense of Donald J. Trump. Of course, such words are not needed among his avid supporters, so I will defend them as well as Trump himself. Now, there's a backdrop to my comments, and it's important. I'm remembering a story about a golden calf. It appears in the ancient Hebrew scriptures. While Moses, who was the leader of the Hebrew people, was out of the camp and up on a mountain seeking God's direction, the people in the camp grew impatient and decided they would make a god of their own liking and shape that self-fashioned god as their sovereign. Now, here's the defense. Donald Trump has every reason in the world to believe that he can and in fact should be president of the United States. For his entire life, Trump has lived in a country that worships wealth and power. Our culture of celebrity thrives in such a nation. Our electoral system is defined by it. Our judicial system reinforces it. Our criminal justice system perpetrates it. And to the extent that you and I and every other well-meaning American has turned a blind eye to this idolatry, this worship of money and power, this normalization of a double standard that affirms the greater value of some lives over others, we've been complicit in creating Donald Trump. In his interactions with his supporters, Trump channels perfectly the most successful demagogues in history. In his interactions with the media, he has, until recently, been received with limitless and almost universally uncritical coverage. Notice how, when actually challenged in an interview or a debate, the candidate is not only defensive and angry, he seems genuinely shocked. And why shouldn't he be? For a lifetime, Donald Trump has been building himself up to be what the culture around him has told him he should be, what he has to be in order to be the best by the standards we have allowed to define us. Criticism and disapproval shock him because, based on the world we have created, Donald J. Trump should not have to struggle to become president if he wants to. He's entitled to be president. In fact, he's entitled to be God, because that's the definition of idolatry. And Trump personifies everything that we have come to worship. In recent days, even as some conservative politicians strategically renounce the candidate, prominent leaders of the political religious right have been twisting their rhetoric into pretzels to strategically defend this man. Powerful figures who reach audiences of many millions, from Pat Robertson to Franklin Graham to Tony Perkins and many others, have invented ingenious ways to erase their own past statements and defend Trump in ways so disingenuous that they perfectly mirror the golden calf itself. Trump is God's candidate, they've told us, while dancing around the self-serving God. In their worship of money and power, they exalt a God who is not God and was not God in their past. I've also heard quieter voices of faith begin to call for a prayerful, thoughtful, humble reevaluation of what we've become. I've seen the question asked, what is God showing us through this election? What, if anything, is there for us to learn amid this chaotic mess? These are fair questions, don't you think? But I don't think we needed to wait until it got to this point to hear the voice of God or good. All of the world's great religions are in remarkable agreement on the issues of money and power, on greed and injustice and blindness to the suffering of others. And make no mistake, for a vast number of Trump's followers, too many years of being on the receiving end of these sins at the hands of the rich and powerful is precisely what's led to their being ready to suspend belief and accept that this quickly shaped God finally is on their side. So they trust that the God they have shaped with their own hands can fulfill their hope. Obviously, they need their self-constructed God rather than any transcendent deity. They are hungry, ravenously hungry, to win an election at any cost and be great. Now, look, I don't know how or where we go from here, back to the way it was or forward to a better day. I don't know how we can visit again a time away from seeing each other as malevolent enemies, our lives as circumscribed by the whims of the rich and powerful whom we have allowed to become our idols. But I know that we have to find that place and that time again. Donald J. Trump may be rich and powerful, but I don't think he's particularly wise. And that's why he seems so surprised at any challenge to his birthright, no matter how slight. In more ways than is comfortable to admit, he is the president America deserves. Look, friends, we've not had a revolution or experienced an overthrow of our government. Trump defeated more than a dozen competitors to secure the Republican nomination for the presidency. The Democrats chose Hillary Clinton as their candidate from among 5 or 6 other contenders. Through our democratic process, we chose the nominees for this campaign. Trump won the nomination fairly. He is the president that a sizable block of people in this nation want, and that others of us passively made way for his rise in fame. As we wait for the final weeks of the election to play out, I hope a moment will arrive when we recommit to truly understanding and fearlessly defending the potential of this great nation to be more than just the playground of a few opportunists. Vote for the person whom you support, but please do not let them and their agenda be your God. Change is always possible. I support an election centered on change. But I hope the change comes before Election Day. I wish it were today, a day when we set aside self-made idols meant to make us rich and powerful and turn again to protecting a nation that covets freedom for religion and no religion in the cause of securing again a government of, by, and for the people that is irreversibly committed to freedom and justice for all.